Oh,
Hey, buddy.
there he is. I was like
How,
trying to adjust the camera.
how are you doing?
Dude, I'm good. I'm excited to do this. This is super awesome.
I'm excited to have you. Well, it's live, so if anybody's watching, thank you for being here. But this live stream will be saved on my website, sethkingdom.com/podcast for later watching. But I want to introduce you, Jonathan, to the world of Instagram. Many people know who you are already, but a quick bio. So you are a self-made singer-songwriter who has gotten over 100,000 streams on Spotify. You are a worship and youth pastor at Danville, Virginia, at a church, at Hope Church, but you like to make music at your home and during nights and weekends. And your sound is similar to Gable and Price and Friends and Rivers and Robots, but with an 80s style sound. So today you're going to answer how you reached 60,000 streams on your latest album. And then when you're not making music, you're hanging out with your wife at a local coffee shop.
That's
So
very true. I was there for lunch today.
that's perfect. I love that. Well, great. We're not going to waste any time. We're going to jump right in. So tell me about you and your music and your music creation.
Yeah, it's so interesting because you and I have had like so many conversations in the past, but we haven't like maybe talked about this part. But like my family growing up, we did a lot of music stuff just together in general. My younger brother plays the drums, my older brother played guitar, my dad played guitar, my mom played piano. And so we just kind of like always were doing music stuff. And then it kind of, I don't know, it kind of got to this point where that quickly turned to like, this is my hobby that I do. And then my brothers are like skateboarding or doing other cool things. And I was just like recording. And so, yeah, like I kind of just started by posting free stuff on YouTube, SoundCloud, all of that. And most of it was like covers. And then I started trying to write my own stuff, maybe late high school into college kind of thing. And yeah, I don't know. It is weird to hear the numbers that you mentioned though. Like even seeing them, I'm like, what is going on? I don't know what to do with this. So
I
yeah,
love it.
like I don't know. I make all of it here in this room actually, and it's a mess right now. So I'm not going to show you everything.
Well, no worries on that one. My office is a little messy too. So you said you were working on the live stream or live streams. You were working on the sound streams and doing your music creation. But how long has it taken to reach this 100,000 streams as a musician?
That yeah, that's like a. I was trying to think about that. That's like a hard question because there's so many factors to it, and it obviously hits in waves, right? So like my first stuff that I even released to Spotify or whatever, I might have had like 2 monthly listeners, one being myself and the other being someone random somewhere. I don't know. I'm like, if you're out there, contact me. That would be amazing. But yeah, so that, it was kind of like slow. And then probably 2 years ago was when it started gaining some traction. And suddenly it just was like this very consistent climb. And then all of a sudden you pass 100,000 and you're like, that's like a big number. That's kind of scary. But yeah, that was kind of like, how long did it take? I mean, it took every bit of 6 years, but then it just hit this all of a sudden where it started climbing really fast. So I would say maybe a fair number would be 2 years. Otherwise, it was kind of like very stable.
Well, that's great. I'm going to throw you a curveball. What things have you done to promote your music in that 2 years to reach this 100,000 streams? Would you say you've done anything unique, or has it all just been kind of consistent?
I think I was very scared to promote my music at all for so long. Like I was very self-conscious. I still get in my head sometimes about it because it's such a, you're creating something and you're putting it out there and being like, this is a part of me. Please don't hate me, that kind of idea. But I guess at first it was just kind of like actually letting the people that I knew know that I was doing something, actually posting about it. And then it started kind of this word of mouth system. And then after a little bit, I thought, well, I need to contact people who are doing playlisting and say like, hey, I have this song and like I exist. You should throw it on your playlist. And that's like one of the weirdest ways. But I just would go on Spotify and look at the username of a person with a playlist that had a decent amount of people on it. And I would say, I wonder if their Spotify username matches like their Instagram username. And so reach out to them that way and be like, hey, you probably get this a lot, but you should throw my song on there. And people were super cool about it. And so they started putting my music on their playlists, and then that would kind of snowball.
That's a great thing for any young musicians out here making the music, a good PR, public relation way to kind of get your music out into a playlist. So that's great. It's a great snippet and to take away. What would you say your biggest challenge has been in music creation, and what have you done to maybe overcome that?
I think probably my biggest challenge would be the trying to balance the promotion, right? Like there's like the battle in my mind of like, oh, I don't want to like annoy people by telling them about my music. But then, that's kind of an unreasonable thing to think because people are interested to know. And so it's like fighting off that idea of like, well, I shouldn't say anything, and actually promoting myself and actually like stepping out there and sending people links or saying, you should pre-save this song, you should do this. Because at the end of the day, people won't listen if they don't know it, it exists, And so that, and I think just the sheer amount of musicians that are out there, it's such a like dense market to where it can quickly become like discouraging when you are trying to fish your way through onto playlists with contacts and stuff like that, where you're like, man, I am up against so many other people that are doing this. So it starts to become like, what is unique about what I'm making, or what is interesting? What should I focus on with promoting it? It's like a long answer, but I would say that just being willing to like put myself out there in that way is probably the most challenging part of it, for sure.
Well, yeah. And no one's going to hear your music unless it's, promoted by you or another person. So
Yeah.
It's a great way to be discovered.
Yeah.
So that's a very valid challenge, but it's one that, as a musician, it's kind of a double-edged sword. You have to do it. Otherwise, no one's going to listen.
It feels so awkward sometimes. Yeah. It's just like, hey, man, like, you should listen to this song. Like, you can add it. And he's like, who are you? And you're like, look, man, I don't even know it yet. I'm just trying to, So it can be very awkward at times. And then at the same time, it is such a, like, subjective thing. Like, some people really like your music. Some people are like, this isn't really my style. And so you have to be like, at the same time, emotionally prepared for a person to be like, no, it doesn't fit what I like. And then you're like, oh, that would hurt.
Right.
Don't tell me that.
But no one says that to you, Jonathan.
No, I've had it happen. I've had it happen. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, there's like a playlist that I reached out to and sent it to them, and they were just like, I think the mix is bad. And I was just like, oh, that one hurts me too because I did all the production.
I know. I'm a one-man band. Right?
It hurts, It's super funny.
That's good.
You just kind of get to a point where you're pretty okay with it, and you're like, that's fine. I get it.
Constructive criticism.
Yeah, exactly.
What advice would you give to a musician starting out and wanting to get their music out there?
Oh man, I mean, just start doing it. In general, like there's so many ways to distribute music now that are affordable and easy to use. Like, I mean, there's DistroKid, SoundDrop is another one, CD Baby is another one that feels weird to say CD Baby, but it's super easy. You just record your song, upload it there, pay for it to distribute out to all these streaming platforms. And I think almost view it like a bucket list. That's how I started. I was like, I want to do this to say I was able to do it. Not so much to like get a ton of streams, but just to say that I actually committed all the way through. And so like my first album came out in 2013 or 14. So bad. It's so bad. I go back and listen. I'm like, oh, Jonathan, what were you doing, my man? You should not have recorded this way. But I'm glad I did, because you just slowly improve over time, and you learn things that you don't like how they sound, and you start watching tutorials, or you start talking with other people through the connections you make, and they teach you stuff. So like my advice would be just start, because you're going to miss out on learning so much if you are just sitting back and not actually taking a step into it and trying. And you don't have to have much to do it. You just need a microphone and a computer, and you can make it happen.
That's good. Sometimes just starting is the best motive.
Yeah.
End, if you will, but you just got to start.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
What things do you do, Jonathan, to get your creative juices flowing when it comes to music creation?
It hits kind of in waves, like the streams. I was saying, it goes up and down, but I always end up in this mode after I've released a project. Like last year I released the album, and the day it came out, I looked at Kristen and was like, I'll never be able to write another song again. Like, it's like, it's over. That's it. That's all I've got. And it was like 3 or 4 months where I didn't like record a single thing, like didn't sit down and try. And I think that's pretty normal, to have kind of dead zones of creativity. And then all of a sudden something will hit and you'll be like, oh, I've got to sit down and try to record this. And that's kind of what happened with the project I'm leading towards, is that I kind of like all of a sudden heard a sound or something like that. And then I sat down and started messing with it and the computer. And then I was like, man, I think that this would be a song. And then it starts snowballing into it. So most of the time, the inspiration for it comes from actually sitting down and like sitting at the piano. And sorry, my phone's going crazy. I hope you can't hear that. But I usually like sit down at a piano and will just mess around with some chords, some different sounds until something kind of hits. And most of the time I'm writing the music before I write a lyric or something like that. So that's just kind of what happens. Now, I also tend to lean towards concept albums, like where one single idea like flows through it. And so this one that I'm working on right now, I'm trying to focus each song on an area of like conviction that I feel like I'm really bad at. So there's kind of that flow of feeling to where when you sit down, you're like, what does that feeling sound like? And you start working on it. Sometimes I try to go an opposite route where I'm like, this is a really sad concept, so I'm going to make this song overly happy sounding because that would be interesting. So it's inspiration can kind of come from like a bunch of different places, but for the most part, I think just sitting down at an instrument and just playing until something sticks, humming while you're doing it, is a pretty big deal. Yeah. There's like a method called the kitchen sink method, where you sit down and you're like humming or singing gibberish until like something hits like a syllable. And sometimes that literally just like triggers it. And you're like, I've got a song. Like, this is it. This is what it sounds like. And that's really nice when it happens.
Yeah. It comes out.
You're like, yes. There it
Well,
is.
that's great. Well, again, it complements your last point of saying you just have to start, like, and you may go through those periods of dry season. So
Yep.
it's creativity is hard. It's a hard process, but I mean, in design or in music, but as part of the process. So
Yeah.
that's great. What are you most proud of, or what is your highest point in your music creation? Um, in your history of music creation.
Oh man, I I've had a, I've had a couple of times where you know other artists that I kind of like respect have heard a song of mine and have like reached out saying like, "Hey, I like it." And I'll in those moments you're just like, "What is going on? What has just happened? I don't know what's going on with this. I feel strange. I feel awkward." And then you also become very nervous because you're like, "Oh no, the people I like have listened to my music. Now I'm going to be paranoid." Uh, but those are really interesting times. And then literally this past weekend, I was at a youth conference. I don't think I told you about this yet. Yeah, like
No.
I was at a youth conference, and this random teen walks up to me, and she's just like, "Are you Jonathan Wright?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I thought she was going to ask me like a question about the schedule of the event or something like that. And she's just like, "Can you sign this? I listen to your music." And I was like, "What?" And I felt really awkward in that moment. And I was like, "Are you sure?" And she was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "All right." And so I signed it
Wow,
and handed it
that's
back.
awesome.
So that was cool. But I think like I definitely have something that I feel like is like the most meaningful thing was I got a message when I put out the album Wind. It had been out like a couple of weeks. I got a message from someone on Instagram that it was her and her husband had just gotten back from vacation and found out that one of his family members had like passed away while he was on vacation. And so she said that they had like a 5 hour drive home and that he like very uh, specifically requested to listen through my album because he thought that it would make him feel better. And so they like sent me a message thanking me. And I was just like, "What is y'all's address? I'm sending you a shirt. I'm sending you a CD. I'm sending you, like, I just
Oh,
sent like as much stuff
that's
I had."
awesome.
And that was, I think, probably like that sticks out to be like the most meaningful for sure. Just to know that it made like a difference for someone.
Yeah, it goes more than just getting 100,000 streams.
Yeah,
Like, you are being impactful to one person who was influenced and comforted by your music. So that's
exactly.
really
And
awesome.
I read that message and just started crying. I was like, "Oh my, it meant something to
That's
somebody."
well, again, it goes back. Just start. Just do
Yep.
something, right? So that's great. What things, or whether it be emails or websites, do you subscribe to continually learn in your industry of music?
There, there's there's one that I use so much that it's just a YouTube channel called Make Pop Music, and it's not all pop music that he walks through and does production tips of, but it's all sorts of genres. And he's just so good at taking time and walking through steps and sounds and how to EQ and how to get all of these sounds out that you don't like or that you don't want, or how to make it sound a similar vocal style to a song that you like. And he has an email like newsletter that he sends out that's, so good. And he has kind of like books, like ebooks that you can get from him. And he's probably the one that I listen to the most and watch the most and read the most of. Um, and then there are a few other YouTube channels that I kind of will go towards. There's one called Mixology. That's a website that really is helpful with marketing and with mixing and all of that stuff. And then there is a page called Poddex that it's a podcasting company, but he does a lot of resources on social marketing and things like that he kind of will post reels, and they're super helpful. And so those would probably be the main ones. And yeah, it's pretty great. But definitely make pop music is like the biggest help.
Good.
Yeah.
Nice. Those are great, helpful tools. How can these viewers slash listeners support you and your music?
I mean, just you can stream it, Jonathan Allen Wright, on wherever you're listening, and then follow me on Instagram and TikTok. You know, that's where it's happening. I love posting there. It's a good time. And yeah, I think that'd be it. It's just at Jonathan A. Wright.
Okay.
You know, Jonathan Allen Wright as one long username feels long. I was like, let's just go with the initial.
Just the A, right. Well, great.
Yeah.
Is that, do you have any final words for our audience? Any final advice, any tips or anything like that?
No, I mean, just get out there and start doing it. Have fun with it. I think having fun with it is like actually enjoy what you're doing. Don't put too much like pressure on yourself to suddenly be just getting millions of streams right away. Like, make music and content that you actually enjoy creating, and do it for that reason, you know. And then anything that comes along that is like boosting it and helping it and promoting it, like, just enjoy it, have a good time with it, and let your personality like show through it as well. You and I have had that conversation before. It's like just letting people actually kind of see who you are as a person, so that they don't feel like they're getting like some weird fake version of you on there and in your music. So be authentic. So that would be it. Have fun, be authentic, enjoy it. There they are.
Awesome. No, that's a great advice. Well, thanks, Jonathan, for chatting with me. And this, if you're still listening, will be on my website, sethkingdon.com/podcasts or podcast. It will also be transcribed into an article if you'd like to read it later. I'll share that link with you, Jonathan. But well, bon voyage. Take care.
Bon voyage. I love it. I love the sign off there. That's amazing.
That's French.
Appreciate it, dude. This was fun.
All right, brother. We'll take
I'll
care.
talk
Enjoy
to
your
you later.
weekend.
Bye.
Bye-bye.